Okay, good evening everyone. We're going to be starting our live stream here as we talk about Tropical Storm Sally and what we can expect here across the Gulf Coast as we head through the next couple of days. But first, wanted to start out with the upper level steering pattern and kind of what we have going on as far as what's going to be steering this system as we head to the next couple of days. We currently have an upper level ridge that is steering the storm to the west northwest at this time. That ridge is going to continue to push off into the Atlantic here, and moving in its wake will be an upper level trough. Now this trough again is going to continue to move toward the east in the next day or so, and normally any storm in the Gulf of Mexico would tend to kind of feel that weakness aloft and be drawn to the north, which will happen with time. But the thinking here today continues to be that this upper low may actually outrun Sally, meaning once the storm gets into this part of the Gulf of Mexico here as it approaches the upper Gulf Coast, the steering currents may become really weak for this storm, meaning it could stall out and just kind of sit in this general area for a couple of days, which of course, when you get a tropical system like that to kind of stall out, that never is good news as far as heavy rainfall totals is concerned. So this is definitely looking like a heavy rainfall event as we head through the next week. So 7 o'clock advisory, we just got this in. We don't get a new track forecast until 10, so of course you want to tune back in to Acadiana's news channel at 10 for the new track forecast. But wind still at 40 miles per hour. Movement here, let's see, was moving to the west at 7, now moving to the west northwest at 8 miles per hour. And again, the track forecast as of 4 o'clock continues to take it toward the mouth of the Mississippi River here as we head late in the day on Monday and approach the southeastern Louisiana coastline and also the Mississippi coastline as well. As a Category 1 storm here, winds at 85 miles per hour is what it's forecasted to be, but keep in mind this can easily be a little bit stronger. We could see the storm perhaps go through a rapid intensification cycle here in the next 24 hours. So this intensity forecast could indeed be a little bit stronger than what we have forecasted here, but nonetheless a hurricane approaching the upper Gulf Coast as we head a little bit later on today on Monday and into Tuesday. And then notice by Wednesday afternoon it's barely into South Mississippi still, meaning the storm is not going to move a whole lot in 24 to 36 hours, unfortunately. And that's going to set up a lot of heavy rainfall for parts of the extreme southeastern Louisiana coastline and also Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida as well. And the storm will then kind of finally lift out as we head into Thursday. But at least according to this track, and I don't think, looking at the computer models this evening, I don't think we'll see much change in the track forecast coming up at 10 o'clock. But at least for us here in Acadiana, with this center track holding, the worst of the impacts, the heaviest of the rainfall would stay a little bit further off to our east. So better news, of course, for southwest Louisiana, Lake Charles, and communities that were just hit by Hurricane Laura, and of course the entire Acadiana region. But of course, we never wish this upon anyone. But at least that continues to be the thinking here with this storm as well. And keep in mind, even with a slow-moving storm, the heavy rainfall threat is always going to be the main concern on top of the storm surge as well. Now here's the spaghetti plots. I wanted to throw this up here as well, and pretty good agreement, at least for the most part. Of course, you're always going to have your outliers here that go maybe a little bit further to the west and also a little bit further to the east. But for the most part, a pretty good consensus here with the computer models making landfall, again, somewhere in southeastern Louisiana, coastal Mississippi for early next week. So again, this is the latest computer models, and that's why I don't think we're going to see much of a change in the track forecast as we head into the 10 p.m. time frame here. Now, hurricane watches have been hoisted here for parts of the southeastern Louisiana coastline from Grand Isle on eastward. That includes the Mississippi Gulf Coast and also the coastal counties here in Alabama. No watches or warnings in effect for us here in Acadiana, but the areas, if you are under a hurricane watch here, southeastern Louisiana and other parts of the Gulf Coast, that simply means that hurricane conditions could be likely in the next 36 hours, and we are more than likely going to see these be upgraded to warnings as we head throughout the day tomorrow. So let's turn to our two most reliable models. We have the Euro model here, and again, pretty good consensus with the National Hurricane Track taking perhaps hurricane at this point, Hurricane Laura, toward the mouth of the Mississippi River sometime Monday afternoon into the evening time frame. And as we put it into motion, notice this, Wednesday afternoon barely moves at all, maybe moves a little bit further inland to South Mississippi, but bottom line, heavy rainfall event likely to set up for parts of the northern Gulf Coast here, at least at this point again, that looks to be off to our east here in Acadiana. But still, if you're in southeast Louisiana, if you're in coastal Mississippi, I know you've been through storms before. You're probably saying, oh, it's just going to be a Category 1, which, by the way, it could be a little bit stronger than that. But bottom line, every storm is different. And when we have a slow-moving storm like this, again, heavy rainfall is the main concern. Of course, we saw what tropical storm, that was just a tropical storm, Allison, back in 2001, what that did to the Texas coast and parts of South Louisiana, dumping close to 30 inches of rainfall in some areas. So again, this is nothing to take lightly, and I am never one to believe that there's ever such thing as a weak hurricane. So just keep that in mind if you're in those areas. This is something to take seriously, but also hours upon hours of tropical storm and perhaps hurricane force winds, or at least gusts for parts of the upper Gulf Coast here as we head Monday and through Wednesday. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then finally, as we head into Thursday, that looks to lift out. And then the Euro model here for the third consecutive day tries to bring in a front here as we head into this upcoming weekend, about a week out. So we'll see how this plays out. We saw, of course, what happened to the last one, but nonetheless, something that could impact our forecast here locally as we head into next weekend. Now, as we turn to the GFS model, pretty similar story. And again, what we look for in the models is consistency and trends. And at least for the most part for this storm, things have been in pretty good agreement. It really hasn't been that way through most of the hurricane season, but at least for Sally, the model's in some sort of an agreement here. And again, a little bit slower here with the GFS taking what perhaps could be Hurricane Sally here, nearing the mouth of the Mississippi River, heading a little bit later on into Monday evening. And then GFS here, a little bit faster on the motion, but not a whole lot. This is still Tuesday afternoon, so over 24 hours later. Again, barely into southern Mississippi here, into the North Shore parishes of Louisiana. And again, a lot of rainfall on this eastern side of the system for the Mississippi, Alabama Gulf Coast. So really, I think that's going to be the main story here. We're going to get into rainfall totals in just a little bit, but and really we've been saying this the last couple of days, the main concern with this storm, on top of everything else that a tropical system brings, is going to be the heavy rainfall threat. And then you see the GFS takes it out into Thursday, away from the area, and the GFS also today tries to bring in a little bit of a weaker front than what the Euro was showing, but a front nonetheless heading into to next weekend that could impact our weather here locally. So we'll keep an eye on that, fingers crossed, but we're not going to get our hopes up, at least at this point. So rainfall totals here, we're going to look at the two models. This is the Euro model for us here locally across southwest Louisiana and also across Acadiana, and really it's not picking up on a whole lot. Most of us less than a half an inch of rainfall, but if we go a little bit further off to our east, notice the bullseye here into extreme southeastern Louisiana, coastal Mississippi, and also coastal Alabama and Florida. Anywhere from about 12 to 20 inches of rainfall could be possible. And this may be a little bit overdone. Sometimes the models overdo it a little bit, but bottom line, I think over a foot of rainfall is a pretty good forecast at this point. And then notice the white colors here just offshore here. That corresponds to about 25 to 30 inches of rainfall. So the potential is certainly there. To pinpoint exactly where it's going to happen is always nearly impossible really to forecast, but nonetheless, you get the idea of very heavy rainfall event looking to shape up into this part of the Gulf Coast. And again, this could still shift a little bit as we head through the next several hours and into tomorrow. Perhaps maybe a little bit further west, maybe a little bit further east. But bottom line, you get the idea. Very heavy rainfall situation unfolding for parts of the northern Gulf Coast here as we head into next week. Now here's the GFS model, and again, pretty much paints a similar story here. Most of us across Acadiana, less than a half an inch of rainfall. And then once again, you go a little bit further to the east. There's the bullseye where the heaviest of the rain is looking to set up. A little bit lower amounts here with the GFS is showing, but bottom line, you get the idea that the heavy rainfall situation, very serious, so definitely you want to keep that in mind if you are in that part of the country. Now, your next 10 days here locally for us here in Acadiana, rain chances are going to stay in the forecast as we head into your Sunday. 40% for tomorrow afternoon, not necessarily dealing with a washout, but a few scattered showers and storms out there. And then rain chances next week heavily dependent on the track forecast again of Tropical Storm Sally. I did lower the rain chances just a little bit because as the storm gets a little bit better organized, it'll tend to pull the heaviest of the showers and storms closer to that center of circulation, which means rain chances for us would tend to go down. But of course, we'll continue to watch that. I'm not going to take the rain chances out completely at this point, but nonetheless lowered it from yesterday, so we'll keep an eye on it. And then next weekend, perhaps a little bit cooler. I lowered temperatures a little bit. The model's going even lower than this, but we'll keep an eye on that. We're not going to lower them too low, at least at this point, but it looks like rain chances will start to go down. So one more time here, we're going to back it up. If you're just joining us, real quick, back with the track forecast here, what we're expecting with Tropical Storm Sally, and we'll go over the watches again as well. But again, at least for us here in Acadiana, again, I want to make this crystal clear. We've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of phone calls. Is this going to be like Laura? And it does not appear like it's going to be anything like what we saw with Hurricane Laura. So hopefully that gives you at least some peace of mind. But still a serious situation unfolding for parts of the Gulf Coast as we head to the next couple of days. So again, as of 7 o'clock, wind still at 40 miles per hour, gusts up to 50, and now instead of moving to the west at 7, it's moving to the west-northwest at 8, getting a little bit better organized too. So that's why I keep saying we could see some rapid intensification take place in the next several hours, so we're going to have to keep a close eye on that. Remember, very warm waters out here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Track forecast, again, keeps it well east of Acadiana, but making landfall somewhere in southeastern Louisiana, coastal Mississippi later on in the day on Monday into Tuesday. As of right now, it does look like a Category 1 storm, winds of 85 miles per hour, but again, this could be a little bit stronger. We'll have to see what the next 24 hours has to say about that, but at least from the 10 o'clock advisory this morning, winds were up from 80 miles per hour. So we'll continue to see how the trends go there. But again, with this center line taking hold here, if this continues to stay true, worst of the impacts will stay a little bit off to our east for us here in Acadiana. Now those hurricane watches again are in effect for southeastern Louisiana. That's the next graphic. Spaghetti plots, again, pretty good agreement with the National Hurricane Center, so not expecting too much of a change in the forecast coming up at 10 o'clock. And again, those hurricane watches in effect for Grand Isle on eastward, but none of us here in Acadiana under any sort of a watch or anything like that. But if you are under a watch at this time, it's likely to be upgraded to a warning as we head throughout the day tomorrow. So again, that's what we're looking at right now, and the models continue to be in pretty good agreement, keeping the worst of the weather at this point a little bit further off to our east. But if you are in extreme southeastern Louisiana at this time, if you are in coastal Mississippi, coastal Alabama, coastal Florida, I can't stress enough, you need to take this storm seriously, even though it could be only coming in at a Category 1 storm, because when a storm is moving at that slow of a speed, the impacts are still very much significant as far as heavy rainfall and also the surge threat as well. So one final look at your 10-day forecast here for us here across Acadiana. And again, we'll have more on Tropical Storm Sally, plus the very latest on your local weather forecast coming up on Acadiana's news channel at 10. For now, I'm meteorologist Bradley Benoit in the KTC Weather Lab. Y'all have a great evening.